Welcome to the tutorial video of the Golden Wedding in Madeira. So I just want to start with a little bit of theory. So if we look right at the beginning there, we've got a 2-4 time signature. So what that means is that we are dealing with quarter notes because our bottom number is 4. So that's a quarter notes. And the top number just tells you how many there are in the bar. So that time says 2, 4, so we have 2 quarter notes per bar. And that can then lead us to find out that, well, there are 2 beats in the bar, because in this music, a quarter note is a beat. So if you've got 2 quarter notes per bar, that means you have 2 beats per bar. Another way of working out how many beats you've got in the bar is looking at the grouping. So it's quite simple. You start a new group when you start a new beat. So if you look at any of those bars, you can see there are 2 groups of notes. So then you have 2 beats. And that might be quite useful when you're working out the timing as you go through the tune. So on to playing. Now the first bar, we're starting with our throw on D, and then we've got the cut low A up to B. So this should sound. Now what you want to try and do, again, looking at the grouping of the beats, the throw on D is the first beat, and then the B is the following beat. Now we're not playing it so that all of them are the same length. We can see we've got a dot and a cut, and that means the dotted note is longer and the cutted note is shorter. So you're going to try and cut that as much as possible, but build up to it. So start with and eventually lead yourself to getting. So you could play this in like a short little exercise, and just to get you warmed up with it. So try that 4 or 5 times, and if you're getting it correct, try challenging yourself. So then get the low A more cut. Okay, and notice that the quicker my low A is, the longer the throw on D is, or the D of the throw on D. So it has to be a balance. So you can't just keep cutting the note and not putting what you're taking away back onto another note. It all has to balance. So as I get my low A shorter, my D has to get longer. All right, so we're getting a nice balance, and you're still working to the correct beat. And then you could try that in the whole bar. Now, the shorter you get that low A, the more likely it is that you're going to hear some crossing noise creeping in. Anyone that's not heard the term crossing noise before, that just means a note you can hear that shouldn't be there. So it might sound like this. And you can hear a little low G coming in just before the low A. And that's from your fingers not moving in the right way, and the right timing. What's happening is you're going to low G, perhaps if it is a low G you can hear. The way of getting rid of that really is that the highest finger needs to go last. So or another way of thinking about it is make sure you lift your little finger up first. So you're never going to hear that low G coming in if you get that right. So as you're cutting that low A faster and faster, you may hear that crossing noise. That's how you're going to try and get rid of it. So make sure you're moving the fingers in the correct order. So moving on to the next bar, so bar 2. Again, we've got our 2 beats, our 2 groups, and both of these groups have got dot and cut. So again, this is going to be a bit of a challenge to make sure you're cutting correctly. And again, you want to try and build up to the sharpest you can. And what I mean by sharp is getting it more and more exaggerated so that you're getting the dot and the cut further and further away from each other. So the second bar, just try the beat 1 to beat 2, so stopping on the throw on D, just to get that bit right first. Try that a few times until you can get that correct. It might be a bit tricky to get into that throw on D correctly, but keep trying it until the throw on D is clean and clear. And then you want to work on trying to get that C shorter like we did in the last bar with a low A. So again, try and put that into an exercise, just those 3 notes. Again, gradually getting that C shorter and shorter, which means the B gets longer and longer, until you're happy with that. And as long as you don't get to a point where you can't hear the C anymore, you'll be fine. So you don't want to go, that would be a bit too quick. So you want to still hear that C, but it does need to be really short. So that B is almost the full length of the beat. And then the next beat and the following beat after that, and we've got another dot and cut. So we've got the throw on D, which is held, we've got the cut E to F. Same thing here. Again, trying to get that D almost the full length of the beat, cutting the E to the F on that following beat. Again, here you could quite easily get some crossing noise on the D to the E, where you're changing hands, lots of fingers are moving. So again, making sure you're moving the fingers in the right way, in the right order. So on here, D to E, you want to make sure you're moving your highest finger first. Whenever you're going up the scale, highest finger first. So that means your highest finger in that change is your E finger. So you want to move that first. So if that's moving first, you will never get, doesn't matter how these move, you'll never get a crossing noise because you're already at that E sound. And then it's just a case of refining the E sound to make sure you're not false fingering. And then obviously don't move to F until you've got these fingers back down, so you've got a true E, then you're off to the F. And it's a case of practicing that until you can get that quickly. So okay, so it might need a little bit of work, but keep practicing. It's very important that you don't hear crossing noise. Okay, the following bar, so bar 3, we've got an interesting little run here. So we've got from the F, we've got a cut E, very short E, down to the D. Now the D is also a short note, it's got 2 tails, so we're looking at a semiquaver there, but it is dotted as well. So it's a little bit longer than our other cut notes. And what you want to try and get here is a nice hold on the F, a very quick E down to D, and now the D you're going to sort of pause on. Although it's a quick note, it's not a really quick note. So you're going to pause at the beginning and the end of the run. And it's all about getting a nice flow through that run. So the E is very short. So you want to get something like this. If I play from the high A, so you can hear the note beforehand, that's what our goal is. Now try that slowly. And what you're going to do, just keep doing that as an exercise. Keep repeating that until there's no crossing noise there. It's nice and clean, and you're getting the right proportions so that the E is very short. And then you're going to try and make it flow. So that the E, you're not really thinking about the E, you just flow through it. So you're just going to go straight through that E, not really think about it, and get to the D. Again, crossing noise could quite easily creep in here between the E and the D. So now we're going down the scale. We are going to be lifting or putting down the highest finger last this time. So when we're going up, highest finger first. When we're going down, highest finger goes last. So as long as you do that, you won't get any crossing noise. And what it would look like is this. So preparing those fingers for the D, then putting that down last. If you can get that right, you won't hear any crossing noise coming in. It would be impossible. So that phrase again, no crossing noise, and nice flow through the E. Okay, now if we listen with the beat, getting up to that next F doubling there, the following beat in the next bar, we want to get he, ha da, di da, cha da. So you're holding a D for as long as it takes to get to the next beat. So get up to that G grace note on the F doubling on that following beat. Okay. Now, the next line is pretty much the same things going on. So the first bar is the same, the second bar is the same, the third bar is the same, and the fourth bar is self-explanatory. It's very similar to the fourth bar on the first line. You're just dropping the notes down by one. We have our strike at the end. Now make sure with the strike, just a little technical thing, just make sure the grace notes aren't on top of each other. So we don't want a nice open strike so you can hear the D in the middle of the grace notes. Okay, and that G grace note will start the beat. Chidi, hun, chaba. So we get that sound. Now the only other thing here that we need to look at is the variations here. So we've got the bracket above our both strikes. One says the number 1 in and the other one that says the number 2 in. Now all that means is that the first time through the part you play the strike with the number 1 bracket, and the second time through, when you repeat the part, you get to that bit, you skip out number 1, so you don't play that strike anymore and you play the other strike. And you're thinking, well, they're both strikes, so why are they different? If you look closely, one of them is a quaver and the other one is a dotted quaver. Very tiny difference in the timing. So the strike is played the same, but one of them you're going to hold longer because it is dotted. So that is our second time through. And the reason for that is that we have a dot note at the end there after the strike. And if you look at our second part, the intro note into the second part, that's cut. So we're getting a dot and cut into the second part. So if I play the last 2 bars the first time round, so repeating part 1, and then I'll play it going into the second part and you'll hear the difference. So there we can hear that the first time through, when we're repeating the part, the strike and the intro E for the first part is evenly spaced between that beat. Now listen to the second time through. We're not going to have that anymore. We're going to have a longer D and then we're going to have a cut E into the second part. So that will sound like this. Okay, so again, same thing as what we've done before. It's very similar to the end of the second bar in our first part, where we have the cut E from a dotted D up to an F. Now the second part, there's quite a few bits of repetition, so we've got the same run in there, we've got the same end phrase. We do have something that we just need to look at briefly, is our other run, another type of run here from the high A, cut F to a dotted E. Now you want this to sound the same in terms of timing as the other run in that first bar. The tricky bit here is playing the G grace note to the E off a cut F. Now that can be a bit tricky, and again you can get a very messy sound if you're not careful. And that just comes from making sure that the G grace note is played with the note that follows it. And what I mean by that is that the note change has to happen inside the grace note. So what many of you might hear is where you play the grace note early and the note change afterwards. So it might sound like this. Or you might get the opposite, where you get the grace note late and you do the note change before the grace note. You might get that sound. Now what you want to do is get the note change inside the grace note, and that is quite tricky, so we'll slow it down, and you should get from the F to the E. So you're lifting the grace note, do the note change, grace note finger down, and then your note change is happening inside the grace note, and you're never going to get that inaccuracy with the grace note. And it's just a case of practicing that until that's normal for you, and then start speeding it up. And then once you're ready with that, we can pop that back into that phrase. Okay, you don't have to be too cut with that F to begin with, just get used to it, make sure the grace note's clean, that's the most important thing. Once you have that grace note clean, then you can start getting that sharpness to the phrase. And again, then we add on the F at the next beat, so wait until that next beat and then we go into that second bar. So we should hear so that's all that's new really for the second part. The only other thing, another little bit of theory, is the variations. So the first time through the part, we can see you've got your first line, the second part, which is fine. The second line, we've got our bracket again with the number 1. So we play that the first time through. Now we repeat the part, again observing the dot and cut into the part again, it's still the same as before. But this time we're going to miss out that second line where it's got the bracket with the number 1 over it. We're going to play the first line of the second part and then jump down to the bottom line, which has the bracket with the number 2. So the first time through it we play bracket number 1, second time through it we play bracket number 2. All you need to see there is that actually bracket number 2 you've played before. It's exactly the same as the second line in the first part. So you've played this before. So you should be fine with that. As long as you've done all the correct things in the first part, you shouldn't find any trouble with that repeat. So I hope you have fun learning that. A little bit of tips for learning tunes is the way that I learn tunes, so it doesn't matter how difficult or hard they are. I always go through the same process. So once I've gone through all those little bits and I know I can play all the technique correctly, I then go back and I attack it bar at a time. I keep adding on a bar at a time so that I learn the tune and I can memorize it quite quickly within a session, maybe of 20 minutes sometimes, if the tune is easy enough for me to play. So I would attack this, play it from the beginning and just stop at the end of the first bar. Now I'll repeat that maybe 4 or 5 times until I'm really happy with it. I've got the right timing, so the cut note's nice and short. I've not got any crossing noise. My throw on D is correct every time. I get a nice sound for that tap down. Once I'm happy with that, I'll then add on the next phrase, so in the next bar, and I'd go up here, up to the throw on D. And I would play that 4 or 5 times. And once I'm happy with that, I've got the cut notes correct in the second bar again, throw on D is correct, no crossing noise. I'll then add the next phrase. And again, when I'm happy with that, 4 or 5 times do that and keep adding on, add on, add on. And by the time you get to the end of the tune, you would have played that first bar like maybe 30, 40 times sometimes, second bar a little bit less than that. But by the time you've got to the end of the first part, that tune would have stuck in your head. And you'll probably be able to do it without the music again. Yeah, you could try it. Sometimes you might not be able to. Well, fine, just get the music back again. It doesn't matter. You don't have to memorize it straight away. But it's a really good tip for memorizing tunes. It's just that repetition. But rather than just go top to bottom and then do it again and do that again, just do it in little sections. Makes it a little bit more fun, but it also means that you can really listen to very specific points in the music, and you can then stop and then go back and do that little section again. So it's not so daunting to do, but that's my tip for memorizing tunes. And the only other thing that I haven't mentioned so far is the doublings. Just to get the timing right on these, just generally, so the F doubling and the E doubling, make sure that you're not getting the doubling even with the following note. What I mean by that, we're looking at the fourth bar in the first line of each part there, or the fourth bar of the second line, because you've got the E doubling in the last phrase. So if I look at the first line phrase there with the F doubling down to E, looking at the fourth bar of the first line, what you want to make sure you don't do is get that even, where you go, where the E almost sounds like part of the doubling. So just make sure that all your doublings are its own movement. You pause after it, then you play the next note. So that bar needs to sound and not, and the same thing with the next bar down, so the fourth bar of the second lines of the part, where you have the E doubling to the D and not. Okay, so just to recap that again, we want these sounds. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that tune. And again, if you need to get another tune, follow the website, give me an email, and we can get the next tune you want. Or if you would like some lessons, please get in touch with me and we can arrange some lessons. Thank you.